Let's talk about it now.
All right, welcome to the Let's Talk About It show on Friday, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I am not John Vervalen. I am Peter Urbano filling in for John today. And all I have to say is what a opening for all the years I've ever hosted this show. I think I did like 5 years straight every single morning. I never got my own intro. So, John, kudos to you. Well, again, this is going to be a great Friday. It is sunny, thank goodness. It's a beautiful day out. And my guest today, Kevin Carns. Kevin is a Chehalis City Council member, but he's here in a different role today because he has his business, Prometheus Consulting. They do a ton of polling, and they were just out in the field recently, and he gathered a bunch of polls, maybe nationally, Washington State. We're just going to talk a little bit about that because, you know, every time I'm on, social media, reading the newspapers, there's a poll that it's all doom and gloom. There's a poll that it's all great. I kind of want to know what Kevin has to say. So, all right, Kevin, thanks for joining me on this beautiful Friday.
Yeah. Finally stopped raining.
Finally Friday, finally stopped raining. The grass is growing. I'm going to have to mow it like 3 times this weekend.
Yes.
And then everyone's going to have, bloodshot eyes and hay fever and everything else. But, all right, so Prometheus, pretty cool. I read your memo. It's called Washington State Political Intelligence Memo, and it's only like a day old or 2 days old. So tell me a little snapshot. What did you find going out in the field?
So a couple things going on, and want to back up just a little bit that a poll is a snapshot in time. That snapshot was yesterday, and things have already changed this morning a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Straits of Hormuz are open. Oil is down 12%. Yeah. So with the 24-hour news cycle, measuring public sentiment is probably more challenging than ever. Getting people to respond and talk about what they're thinking is just a snapshot in time.
Yeah, and that's important to realize, too, because whether it's on this show or anywhere else, I mean, when you read something in the news, it is just a snapshot in time. And like you said, I mean, oil prices, fuel was well, in the state of Washington, it's a little different. We'll talk about Washington versus national and especially fuel prices. But, I mean, fuel was going up and up and up. And polling numbers, a couple days ago were like, oh, crap, this is not good. All of a sudden this morning you wake up and fuel prices are dropping.
Yeah, so there's two things that typically impact local elections in a midterm more than anything, and it's presidential approval and disposable income. Mm-hmm. Whether disposable income's going up or down for working families. Unfortunately, Trump's numbers are not that great in Washington right now, but like I said, it's probably elastic given today's news. Right? If you went back into the field with that exact same survey instrument, his numbers are probably 5 points better in a couple days when gas prices start dropping again. But like you indicated, Peter, Washington State has its own challenges with gas prices coming out of Olympia versus short-term international policy issues.
Yeah, and do you see that a lot when you go in the field and when you talk to people? Because I get this a lot where you'll share information that says, I bought gas this morning and it was $5 a gallon, and you'll get responses saying, it's Iran, it's the war, you must support it. And it's like, look, I recognize that international and national policies impact gas prices, but for the last 4 years, actually since 2023, when the CCA went into effect, Washington State jumped to a top 3 most expensive fuel prices in the nation. That was well before any of the recent wars that people talk about.
Yeah, so we compete with California every month on who's got the highest gas prices.
Right.
And I think we have number 2 highest gas tax in the country?
Right now, yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, because there's an automatic inflator on that, right? So It's going to go up every year.
Right. So policies out of Olympia are impacting gas prices in this state far more than short-term issues on the national stage.
But do you think gas prices, for instance, in Washington, one, I guess this is a 2-part question. One, do you think voters or constituents can tell the difference between what's a national impact and what's a state impact? And then 2, can that overcome bad national polling numbers from the president, for instance?
So potentially, I think it was Tip O'Neill, the former House Speaker, that said all politics is local. And that held true for probably the first 90% of both of our time in public policy.
Right.
With the 24-hour news cycle and the polarization in this country right now, it's getting harder and harder to overcome the national issues because everyone is so hyper-focused on what's going on nationally, when what happens in Olympia impacts your day-to-day life a whole lot more than what happens in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I agree. I recently was at an event out at Bethel Church in Chehalis, and we were talking about Medicaid, for instance. Perfect example. Because you can talk about Medicaid and say, well, at the federal level, the availability of Medicaid was cut by the federal government. They said, look, your eligibility is a no, right? They cut the amount of people who could be eligible for Medicaid, but they didn't actually cut the funding of Medicaid, where if you look at Olympia on the other side, it cut $1 billion out of Medicaid the last 2 years. I'm not sure people understand that difference. I think they still see Medicaid and say, oh, well, it's a federal program. It must be federal, without realizing the state has an impact.
Yeah. Affordability is hands down the number one issue we are seeing everywhere I'm doing work.
Yeah.
And I'm working in multiple states right now, and affordability is hands down the number one issue by double digits in everything we're seeing.
Yeah, and that's what I hear every day too. And if you're just tuning in a little late, I am not John Vervalen. I am Peter Obarno. I'm filling in for John today on this Friday edition of the Let's Talk About It show on AM1470 KELA and streaming KELAAM.com. My guest today, Kevin Carns. I guess guest and friend. Kevin is a Chehalis City Council member, but he's also here in a more official role of his business, which is Prometheus, and they do a lot of consulting and polling. And we're talking about recent, polls in the state of Washington and nationally, snapshots of where the president is, where some issues are. And right now we're talking about affordability. And again, at the state level, I think that's the one thing you hear. I mean, Washington State has among the highest gas prices, and we just talked about that, highest grocery costs, highest cost for housing, highest cost to build a house. Some of the highest childcare costs in the nation. I think we're like 6th in the nation for the cost of childcare. And it's not all taxes. A lot of it is, and I don't know if people always understand this until you explain it, but it's not always taxes. A lot of it, like CCA, for instance, is regulations.
Regulatory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in other states, are you seeing Washington being a little bit different than some of the other states you work in?
To a certain degree. I work in a handful of blue states and one very deep red state. Do some work in Connecticut, which is real similar demographically and politically to Washington.
Yeah.
But also do some work in West Virginia for the West Virginia Secretary of State and the Supreme Court Justice candidate out there. And the contrast is stark. Right. But what I'm seeing in Connecticut is really similar. I think a Connecticut Democrat is maybe a little less hard left progressive than the Democrats that currently run the Washington legislature. Because in your time there, you have seen the evolution of they eat the moderates in their caucus, chew them up, and spit them out.
Yeah. They do. One of the highlights that I, when I'm going around the 20th district, I mean, I tell people, here's the bad things that happen, but let me tell you about some of the successes. And I think one of the successes that gets lost in this legislative session, and I don't know if it resonates with people, but I think it's important for me to explain, is that the most House bills were killed this year since 2011 in the House, and in the Senate since 2014. And I some folks will say, well, is killing bills a success? Well, it is, yes, because it can get a lot worse. But the other thing, it also shows that the House, for even those Democrats who are listening, I mean, it's important to realize that, the Republican caucus in the House and the Senate Republican caucus have built coalitions across the aisle. And Republicans alone in the state of Washington can't kill a bill. But if you reach out to moderate Democrats and you build a coalition, you no longer have a Republican or Democrat coalition. You have a bipartisan coalition that says this is a bad policy. And I think that shows a lot of leadership in the last year or two with both caucuses that say, hey, there are sensible minds.
This is bad policy.
Yeah. Which I don't think if we were there or there were enough moderates, you'd be able to kill it.
So way back when I worked for your predecessor, Rich DeBolt, I think we had 32, 33 seats and could not stop anything, and slowly picked up a handful of seats. You get into that 40 plus range and 42, 45 seats with a couple crossover Democrats, you can absolutely stop bad policy. But the House Democratic Caucus has taken such a hard turn left, which was really evident by the income tax proposal that they put forward. And you spent over 24 hours fighting that on the floor, offered, 80 some amendments?
50 of ours and 20 of theirs, I think. Some were 50 something and 20 something. Yeah.
And they refused to codify the threshold, right? Which, for the listeners that don't get what I'm talking about, the House Republicans put a proposal that would freeze it at $1 million, and they said no. So they are coming for your income next.
Yeah. Yeah. And even Democrats are saying that.
Yep.
I think
Jerry
Springer and even Senator Valdez in the 18th said the exact same thing. Why he voted against it was because they refused to put it in the Constitution. They were worried that that he said the future legislators would. But, getting back to polling, do folks who respond to polls, does that issue, like an income tax, do issues like that, can that supersede some of the federal? Because it just seems like people are more excited and more energized by federal issues than state issues. So can an income tax actually, I don't want to use quote unquote Trump some of these federal issues?
I think so. So I just completed a survey for a client in a very affluent district in the state. 95% of the respondents were aware of it. That's the highest awareness I've ever seen on an issue, salience. And 2, only 10% of the respondents actually believed it would never apply to them.
How many?
10%.
So only 10% said that eventually that income tax would not.
Would not. Now, 15% were undecided. So essentially, you've got 75% of the electorate that is hyper aware, and they think it's coming for them next.
Yeah.
And so for candidates who are interested in affordability, which everybody should be, that talking about that issue is absolutely needs to be done.
Yeah. And that's really important, because it's really always interesting to look at some of the polling, because there's usually not a lot of press and fanfare for state polling, but there is more for federal. And I think a lot of folks get depressed when they see the federal polling numbers, especially if you're a Republican and you live in Washington. But I guess there's some, silver linings that, maybe some of these state issues are going to take precedent in even maybe a midterm election. If you talk about it,
you have to talk about it, and the candidates that want to define themselves should do so early before their opponent does.
Yeah,
this is the affordability issue is not going to go away between now and October ballot drop, but talking about it now constantly. And you talk about affordability and gas prices. My dad had a small beef producer, right? His input costs have gone up on everything from the diesel to run the tractors, to the feed, to the wrap, to wrap the bales. Everything we do in that supply chain has just completely gone, probably 20 to 30% increases across the board in your input costs. And that leads to higher hamburger and steak prices in the store.
Yeah. No, and I agree. But do you think, and sometimes I kind of roll my eyes a little bit too, so around Easter time, the president was running around saying, egg prices are less expensive this Easter. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Do little issues like that really matter, or are people looking at their overall grocery bill?
I think people are looking at the overall grocery bill. And, you're not seeing a ton of behavioral change on purchasing on groceries. Now, people might take, instead of buying a tenderloin, they might go for the skirt steak.
Or Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
I love Chuck's steak.
Chuck's a pretty good steak.
It is.
But American families, working families, are stressed over their budgets right now.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if Reichert's is going to get an uptick in Chuck steak sales.
They should. Chuck's a good steak if you cook it right.
If I might go to Reichert's and buy one now. All right, if you're listening to Let's Talk About It show, I'm not John Vervalen. I am Peter Barno filling in for John on this Friday with Kevin Carns, Shale City Council member, and owns the Prometheus consulting firm, doing a bit of polling. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. If you want to chime in, 360-330-5352. We'll take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be back on the Let's Talk About It show, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Hi, it's Heather Stewart, your local real estate professional with Blade Realty. Most people think of real estate in terms of buying and selling homes and property. And while that's true, real estate is so much more. Owning real estate is your best hedge against inflation. It's an asset that comes with big benefits. It's your hot ticket to building long-term wealth. Are you interested? I'd love to chat with you about your options in all things real estate. Find me on Facebook at Heather Stewart Realty.
This is Dr. Travis Podbilski from Arbor Health. If you're being discharged from the hospital but aren't quite ready to care for yourself at home, extended care rehab can be the ideal bridge between hospital and home. At Arbor Health, our nurses typically care for just 2 to 3 patients, not 15 to 20 like many nursing homes. With therapy services on site, that means more attention and a quicker recovery for you. It's your choice where you recover. Ask for Arbor Health, Morton Hospital. We're here to help you heal.
Whether you love them or can't stand them, surprises are a part of life. Hi, I'm Julia Gull, your local Edward Jones financial advisor, and I can help you get ready for whatever life throws at you, even the welcome surprises. As your needs change, we can change what you need to do to help you end up where you want to be. And while there's never a good time to experience unexpected costs, we can work together to help make them feel a little less unexpected. Give me a call at 360-388-3150 or visit edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Saving money is almost as good as winning money. And we've got some great auction items you can win coming up in our KMNT and KELA Spring Radio Auction this Saturday. You'll save a ton of money bidding on items and services from local and area businesses. Some of the items you can bid on or buy include a Patriot bed liner spray from Nomad Truck and SUV Outfitters. Preview items now at our KMNT Facebook page. It's our KMNT and KELA Spring Radio Auction this Saturday, starting at 8 a.m.
Listen to Seattle Mariners baseball today on KELA.
Mariners back at home for a 6-game homestand, starting with the Texas Rangers tonight. 6:40 first pitch, 5:30 for the pregame show. Join us, Gary Hill alongside Rick Riz on your Mariners station.
AM1470.
You're listening to KELA's Let's Talk About It, coming to you live from the KELA Lucky Eagle Casino and Hotel Broadcast Studio in the beautiful Twin Cities.
All right. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It show on AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Barno, filling in for John Vervalen, and I'm just getting used to this new intro, outro, promo music. Kevin, what do you think of it? It's a little, I would have went for I know country, I know talk radio, but I was going for AC/DC. I wanted something hard when I was on the show, and I never got it.
I could do some dirty deeds.
Done dirt cheap, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe even like the Rain King by Counting Crows. I mean, something kind of, because I felt like this in this studio. It's kind of dark, and normally it's dark generally. All right, we got a caller, good or bad. We're going to find out. Let's take it.
Let's see what they have to say.
Welcome to the Let's Talk About It show. You're on the air.
Good or bad? This is Mike Kimbrell. I don't have much to say.
Then it's good. It's Mike Kimbrell.
I understand that, is it true 25% of Washingtonians are involved in Medicaid?
I don't know what the total number of Medicaid is.
I've seen that number, and also the 25% of America, this state. And if that's true, that it's pretty amazing that 1/4 of our people are on welfare.
No, I agree. It's
awful.
It's sad. Yeah, it's sad, and it's a number of different reasons too. And I know Kevin's on his phone right now; he's probably looking at ChatGPT or I don't know, but it is pretty unfortunate, and for a number of reasons. I mean, a lot, one side of the aisle is going to blame, the rising cost of health care because of one reason, and the other side's going to blame that it's not competitive enough and we're not driving rates down and we're adding too many things to insurance requirements. So regardless, too many people are stuck on Medicaid.
Approximately 21% of Americans.
The government shouldn't be providing insurance, competing with the insurance company. That's basically what's happened. The government is becoming an insurance business, and it's not efficient at doing that.
I agree.
In many areas, not just to Medicaid.
Kevin just said 21% of Americans are on Medicaid, so you were pretty close. So about that, over 1 out of every 5. And you're right. I mean, government's job should be to create an environment for the private industry to be successful in getting low-cost insurance out to people, not competing, which ultimately just drives the rates up.
Yeah, the Medicaid, or rather the Obamacare has just, people complain about the cost of medical activity, but it's all because the government's too involved.
Mike, and I'll tell you, in recent weeks, I've been getting more and more emails from folks wanting universal health care. And I keep telling them, like, universal health care, that's not the answer. I know people want health care and they believe it's a, fundamental right to have health care, which it technically isn't. But we need to get out of the way so that insurance companies can provide low costs. I mean, you want to make sure that insurance companies are doing the right thing. You want oversight, but you don't want what Washington does, which is say, we're going to set up our parallel system and make the cost of healthcare be even higher.
Eventually, there's not going to be enough people to pay the people that are on welfare and getting all kinds of government benefits. It's going to come to an end.
Yeah, I agree.
The ability of people to pay taxes. Our taxes are terrible here. Anyway, I've said enough. God bless. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Look, I mean, Mike points out, I think, a statistic that I didn't even mention yet today, but Washington State right now, and that came out from the Bureau of Financial Analysis, whatever, just said that Washington State is the 5th highest cost of living in the nation and the 6th highest state to raise a family or raise kids. That's not good, though.
That's not a statistic you want to be in the top 10 of.
No. And again, I mean, if it was national politics, then we'd be right in the middle, right? Because it would be expensive across the board. And I know it is, but we wouldn't be so high on the list of these cost of living metrics, which is really, again, to your point, when you look at polling numbers, maybe highlighting early on the affordability issue and pointing to this Washington, not the other one, is probably the best thing to do for a lot of, local or state candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is hands down the number one issue.
But if you're a federal candidate, I mean, do you also point to the federal government in reforming it? Do you point to your own state and say, like, if I'm running for Congress, for instance, which I'm not, I like my family and my community too much. I want to be here. I don't want to live in Virginia. But do I point to, like, hey, I'm going to hold my state government's feet to the fire, try to make sure they're doing better, or what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing you see is the federal government's identified a ton of fraud in reimbursements for childcare from the feds to the state.
Right.
And, I know you guys brought it up a little bit in Olympia and just got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
They have zero interest in holding fraud and fraudulent money just flying out the door accountable. So I think a federal candidate absolutely talks about auditing every penny the federal government sends to the state.
Yeah. And so it's not just Republicans. So a number of Democrats are standing up saying, wait. And I got a Democrat who responded positively to me, an elected from Olympia. I did an op-ed in the Chronicle because the state auditor identified $37 million of questionable payments to child care with no receipts or no, pre-qualification. And that only hurts working families. Like, we need a good child care system, but we need it to be accountable, or else the people who need it most are not getting the money.
That's exactly it. If there is that, what'd you say, 37 million?
Right.
What kid on the end of the waiting list is not getting legitimate care because somebody else is committing fraud?
Right. And I think that, to me, is the best message when we're talking about fraud, right? Is that you want your government. I mean, some people don't want government to operate well. I do. I want it to be efficient. And I don't want there to be fraud. And there's always going to be some level of fraud. But when you're talking 37 million, what kid in Centralia, Chehalis, or Lewis County is not on the waiting list? And by the way, when the budget cut transitional kindergarten, cut all these educational programs in early learning, you kind of you got to make sure that your money is being spent wisely.
So at the end of the day, here's the macro picture of what came out of Olympia. You are paying more in taxes. You are receiving less in services.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more cut and dried than that.
Yeah. Now, is there any polling numbers yet on the impact? I mean, I remember there was some polling numbers after last year's session. I mean, people have heard me and others say, I mean, last year had the largest tax increase in state history, and we haven't even felt that yet because, like we just talked, gas prices are going to go up automatically every year. Is there? And there was some polling on that. Is there any polling yet on not only what's happened in the state legislature, but what we just talked about, like, can that overcome national trends?
I think so, because especially given today's news that it looks like potentially the Iran thing is going to wind down, right, before ballots go out. But just staying on the message, which has the ancillary benefit of being the truth.
Right.
Right? Like, it's a whole lot easier to get out there and talk about something over and over and over again if it is a basic truth. And the basic truth in this state is that you are being taxed more and you are getting less for it.
Right. And if you're mad about tariffs and you're mad about the federal stuff, then you have to be mad. How do you not be mad about the state stuff? Because the state stuff is actually has a greater impact on your daily life than what's happening at the federal government. It's really kind of a struggle with me to say, yeah, I get it. You hate tariffs or you hate this, but how do you say you dislike one and not in the same breath say, yeah, and this is also a magnifier of a problem?
Yeah, so we don't have any quantitative data right now, but there's an interesting development happening in this industry on measuring public sentiment. Is things are moving from a one-dimensional, two-dimensional poll to conversational sentiment, right? What are people actually talking about in chats, in there? So I'm actually working with a startup in Silicon Valley called Echo, and they do real-time sentiment analysis and just did a case study with them on the Swalwell incident.
Yeah.
They were tracking social listening across, the major platforms, X, Facebook, Reddit, and
even the bots on there.
They actually have technology to weed the bots out.
Oh, good.
No,
as much as you could,
right? As much as you can, it filters out the bots. It is real-time sentiment analysis on what people are actually talking about in real time, and the case study's fascinating. They predicted Swalwell going down over the weekend as the news was breaking because that bell curve of people from every segment of the voters, of the electorate, was saying this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
So they called it while it was developing, not after it happened. And if you can do that social listening and respond in real time, it's a game changer.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I appreciate you coming on, sharing some of your information from the poll. Look forward to having you on the show again, either with me or somebody else, because I think having these updates are really important. And for those of you out there, I think the important thing is it's about issues, right? You should question a lot of stuff. Normally the answer is somewhere in the middle. And if you dig your heels in too deep, I think you get burned. And I think the important thing is to keep your eyes and ears open and make decisions for yourself.
And cast your ballot. Send your ballot in for the primary and general election.
Definitely don't forget to vote. All right, thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It show. Up next, Fox News Report. Thanks for tuning in to the Let's Talk About It show on KLAAM.com.
From the